Hey guys, so today you're going to be going through a presentation on how to diet. My name's Sam Gregory. I'm a personal trainer and firefighter based in London, former Royal Marines Commando, and I've been personal training now for over 4 years, creating an established business based in London, helping people achieve fat loss, muscle gain, improving their fitness from young men and women right the way to people in their older age. So I've got a vast experience in dieting, having lost a considerable amount of weight myself, both dieting for strength gains and performance. So today, basically, we're going to go through a roadmap from creating your own diet right the way through to tracking, progressing, and then changing your diet as time goes by. So I hope you enjoy this lecture, and let me know if you've got any questions via email or message on Instagram. So first thing, guys, the key to dieting success. So there's 4 things written down here. The first being routine. So no plan, if it isn't followed in a routine manner, will survive the rigors of daily life. The reason I say that is because there's some fundamental principles that come along with dieting that require routine consistency, such as maintaining your calories, eating an amount of protein, and then a carbohydrate and fat protocol that is both suits your preferences and your dieting goals. The next thing is balance, guys. I'm not silly. I'm not sitting here talking to an elite athlete who's going to go to the Olympics who doesn't require balance. I'm talking to a human being who has a life, a family, friends, birthdays, weddings, and their fitness goals are as a support to all of that stuff, not as a priority. Next one is discipline. So in order to achieve anything difficult, there is a degree of discipline required. The reason that is because you have to separate what you want most and what you want now. Because as you can see in the pictures, I've got a couple of donuts in there. We all like to eat sugary sweet stuff, guys. It's created to play on our impulses and our desires. It's so tasty that it makes us want to buy more. And therefore we have to be disciplined to establish our goals and then how we're going to get there. And then when we've established our goals and how we're going to get there, we've got to do the same thing. This is where the routine comes in. The same thing day in, day out, working towards our successes. So then underneath and underpinning all of that is an understanding. And you're going to get that sort of understanding from this presentation. The understanding is how to diet, why we diet, and how to change your diet if things aren't going to plan according to your goals. And we need to know whether our diet's going to plan, which is when tracking and progress measurement comes in. And I'll talk about that later. So guys, calories. Calories are the most important part of your dieting. Calories are a measure of energy that our body derives from food. Fat has 9 calories per gram, protein and carbohydrates have 4 calories per gram, and alcohol has 7 calories per gram. So already you can see a range of different words that I've thrown at you there, all composed of different amounts of calories. So in order to lose weight, and I say weight, not fat, because basically you've got to think of your body as a jug of water. When we're in a calorie deficit, which is what I'm going to talk about now, we're just going to get rid of water out of the glass. Yeah, we can't really decide whether that's fat or muscle. We're just going to get lighter. The way we preferentially lose fat over muscle is by making sure that we train. I'll move on to that later, guys. So in order to lose weight, we need to be in a calorie deficit. That means we need to eat less than we burn. Sorry, cancel that. We need to eat less than we burn every single day. That means that there's a deficit that needs to be made up from within our body. All right. And then the opposite to that is a calorie surplus, which is where we eat more than we burn. And then there's a surplus in which that gap becomes stored mass on our body. All right. So there's 2 key parts to this, and that is your basal metabolic rate. So your basal metabolic rate is basically the amount of calories you will burn at rest, guys. So if you were lying in bed or in a coma, these are the amount of calories that your body would need to sustain your daily functions like digestion, brain function, transmuting blood all around your body, and all that good stuff, guys. Basal metabolic rate is that amount of calories. And then on top of that, we've got our total daily energy expenditure. So I'm going to move on and talk about that next. So guys, total daily energy expenditure comes from both our basal metabolic rate, which is the amount of calories we would burn in our bed, and then we've got our total daily energy expenditure, which is things like what our daily activity levels are composed of. Okay, so as you can see on the left-hand side, we have sedentary, which is anything from, you know, you spent a day in bed because you're ill, or you just work at an office and your daily activity levels are very low. And then moving on through to moderately active, which might be somebody who works from an office but gets out and does a bit of walking every day, or somebody who works from an office and does 2 exercise sessions, or somebody who works in a shop that doesn't do any exercise, but they're constantly active, low-level activity all day long. And then we've got highly active, which might be somebody who spends a whole day on their feet walking and does a lot of activity as well. Or they might be a builder and they go to the gym, for example. So this is a key important part of creating and understanding your calorie requirement, guys. So when we're talking about calories, we're looking at an amount of daily calories is the amount of calories we're going to eat for that day. What we need to do is understand our goals. So do we want to lose weight? If we do, we need to understand what calorie deficit is, and you can use various calorie calculators to get that understanding. Calorie surplus, which is going to be decided by the same thing, a calorie calculator, and then maintenance. So maintenance is the third piece, which is basically the amount of calories that you're burning through both your bodily functions and your daily activity, and then you eat at that, and then you should maintain your body weight. Okay. So next thing, guys, we've got what our calories, our daily diet is composed of. So we've got proteins, carbohydrates, fats, fiber, and alcohol. So proteins, as I said before, contain 4 calories per gram. Proteins are anything from meat, eggs, dairy. They're found in things like quinoa, beans, lentils. There is protein in everything, guys, but the meat sources and the animal sources will contain a full complement of amino acids. So what that means is basically there are some essential amino acids, which is what your body breaks down from protein, that your body requires to rebuild and generate new tissue like muscle and all of the other bodily tissues that get degraded every single day. We need an amount of those amino acids every single day, guys. So in order to cover that requirement, we need to make sure we're eating a full spread of amino acids that are classed as essential. And the best way to do that is from an animal source. If you are a vegetarian, then you need to make sure you're varying your protein sources. So having beans, lentils, chickpeas, rice, and all different sorts of protein sources, because otherwise you'll be missing out on some key amino acids. Proteins are the most important part of our diet where body composition is concerned. The reason that is because of what I said earlier about preferentially losing fat over muscle. The way in which we make sure that our body is going to lose fat over muscle is by eating enough protein and training. So what we do is by training our muscles and breaking down the tissue, we create a demand for rebuilding and further muscle building beyond what you already had. And the way we supply that is with protein. So if you are to diet without doing exercise and without eating sufficient protein, your body is less likely to hold on to muscle. And the reason that is because muscle is expensive for your body to keep hold of. And if you're in a state of a calorie deficit, your body's going to preferentially lose muscle and fat. So you're just going to get lighter and not necessarily be looking better in the mirror. So next up then, guys, we've got carbohydrates and fats. You can put these two things in the same sort of umbrella because largely speaking, we can eat these to our own general preference, guys. Whether you like a high fat diet or a high carb diet is really up to you. There is a caveat in that though. If you do lots of high intensity training, lots of stuff where your heart rate's going up really high, and maybe for a sustained period of time, you might benefit from having some more carbohydrates in your diet, especially around your exercise, guys. Fats contain 9 calories per gram. Carbohydrates contain 4 calories per gram, guys. So 100 grams of a fat source and 100 grams of a carbohydrate source are going to give you a significantly different amount of calories, guys. And we're going to understand that later when I talk about tracking. So then you've got 2 more macronutrients. Fiber, which is usually found in carbohydrate sources. This is things like the skin on fruits or starch, things like that. It's a useful part of your diet because your body and your gut require an amount of fiber to ensure that things are moving smoothly and you're keeping nice and healthy in that respect. And then alcohol is our next macronutrient, containing 7 calories per gram. Alcohol doesn't really have a place where a diet is concerned, but as I said before, balance. I know we are in a society where drinking is quite heavily involved. Therefore, I will speak about it. So alcohol, guys, your body, when you've got alcohol in your system, your body's going to preferentially burn that alcohol as energy. So you can see this when you're out on a night out, you're really tired, you have a couple of drinks of alcohol and you've all of a sudden got a load of energy. The reason that is because alcohol is now giving you energy. So your body's going to use the calories from that alcohol preferentially, and then everything else is going to be stored subsequently within the muscles. Not only that, alcohol being 7 calories per gram, it's really easy to see how more calories can creep into your diet when you are drinking, guys. So if you're trying to lose fat, if you're trying to maintain your health, and if you're trying just to enhance your performance, alcohol, I would say stay well below the weekly recommended allowance. 1 glass of wine, maybe 1 bottle of beer. If you enjoy the taste, be moderate, guys. So next up then, tracking your diet, guys. I've got a couple of screenshots here of MyFitnessPal. So MyFitnessPal is a diet tracking tool. It's found on both Android and the iPhones and all the other gadgets that there are. And it's super, super useful, guys. So as you can see here, on the photo on my left-hand side, I've got my daily diary. So up the top, you can see my daily calorie allowance, which has been calculated via the app. You can use this as a calorie calculator. I've got my protein, fats, and carbs. So this is based around a high carb diet because I do plenty of high intensity training and therefore need to fuel that adequately. And also I like eating things like cereals, breads, and different things like that as well. So a high carbohydrate approach is what I use. Again, there is no magic bullet. I've lost weight on a high fat diet as well. And I've lost fat on a high carb diet as well. So tracking your diet, guys, tracking your diet is so, so important. If you don't track your diet and you're trying to achieve a certain outcome, you're really going in dark. You don't know whether you weigh yourself day 1, you weigh yourself day 7, you don't track in between, you're not losing weight. You'll sit there and say, oh, all I've done is eat salad all week. So guys, there's a certain amount of logic that is required here. Yeah, if you're not tracking what you're doing, how do you know what you need to change if what you're doing is not achieving the desired result and the desired outcome? So you need to make sure you're tracking your diet every single day. The stricter your goals and the more higher your goals are, the more strict you have to be with your tracking, guys. If you're just trying to maintain your body weight, you can be a lot more liberal with your tracking. You can do things like just track your protein. You can not track at all, but just eat whole foods and don't snack. And the likelihood is there you're going to maintain your body weight, guys. But the more strict and the higher your goal is, the more tracking is going to play a role in success. So you can see in the middle, there's a breakdown which MyFitnessPal gives you of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. This is crucial in making sure you're sticking to your plan, guys. So if you're given a meal plan, which is the sort of thing I do for my clients, I give them a flexible meal plan where they get a choice of meats, fats, carbs, etc. I basically make sure that they track it on MyFitnessPal and use this sort of feature here where we're looking at carbohydrates, fats and proteins to understand whether their diet is supporting their daily goals. So alongside that, on the right hand side, you can see a breakdown in grams and compared to the goal. So if you've eaten 100 grams and your goal 100 grams of protein and your goal is 160, you'll see a 60-gram deficit, which is in what it says the left column. So what I recommend when we're looking at macros, I recommend that we split our protein across 4 to 5 evenly spread meals. I recommend that you base carbohydrates around your training and fats further away from your training, guys. I recommend that you eat pretty quickly beyond waking up, and I recommend that you eat about an hour before going to bed. The reason that is so that we've got a constant supply of those amino acids within our body, making sure that there's enough protein in our body to maintain and build muscle that we've sort of demanded from our training program. All right, so that is basically tracking your diet. Long story short, it's really important. If you're not getting your desired results, make sure you're tracking as consistently and as routinely as possible, guys. So next up, measuring progress, guys. Measuring progress is another key thing along with tracking your diet. Measuring your progress and tracking your diet come hand in hand. If you're tracking your diet appropriately and you're measuring your progress, you've got 2 metrics to understand whether you are achieving your desired outcome. So I recommend, firstly, scale weight. So getting on the scales, making sure you've not had anything to eat, making sure you're in a minimal amount of clothing possible, making sure it's the same time of day, and making sure the scales are on a flat, level surface, guys. This is my best advice. Weigh yourself every other day and take a weekly average. Don't stress out about any one weigh-in. Don't get excited about any one weigh-in. Take things as a weekly or 2 weekly average. If your scale weight has been going up consistently every other weigh-in for 2 weeks, you know you need to change something. If you're tracking properly, you know what to change. Just reduce carbohydrates or fats. Try not to reduce your protein intake, guys. So next up then we've got measurements. So that's things like hip and waist measurements and neck, depending on where you store fat or where you want to lose fat from. Measurements are really, really useful. Then we've got photos. So these can look like progress photos. So you can take front on, side on, back on, making sure that the areas you wish to lose fat from are visible. Mirror image. Look at yourself in the mirror, guys. Everyone does it. You might see some abs coming through. You might see your love handles disappearing. Anything like that is good. These are all objective measurements that you can look at and see progress in yourself over time. Lastly then, guys, another really good one is clothing or belts. You might be going down a belt loop. You might be fitting into a size 10. All of these different measurements used together are really, really useful, guys. I can't stress it enough. Measuring your progress and tracking your diet will be the difference between you succeeding and failing where your dieting is concerned. So, the key dieting principles, I mentioned them earlier, but we'll go over them now just as we finish this presentation. The first key dieting principle is routine, guys. What you need to do needs to be routine because you need to understand whether what you're doing is serving your goal or whether what you're doing is taking you further away from your goal. The more routine you are and the more consistent your day is, the easier it is to know what to change. For example, I have the same breakfast every day, the same amount of oats in there, the same amount of peanut butter in there, the same amount of protein. If what I'm doing isn't working in terms of my body composition, I know that I just take 10 grams off of that or 10 grams off of that or use 50 ml less milk, etc. If what I'm doing is changing every single day and I'm not achieving my result, it's very difficult to see what I need to change in order to get myself back on track. So then, next one, we've got balance, guys. So balance is where we take the 80-20 principle. I want you to eat 80% of foods that are on the plan, 80% of foods that are deemed healthy, 80% of foods that are going to get you towards your goal. 20% of the time, guys, being realistic, we've all got lives, we've all got families, we've all got friends, we've all got birthdays, etc. We can look at things that are enjoyable, things that are tasty, things that are going to make us happy, but things that aren't going to give us the guilt and the dread of going off plan, because we've got a 20% rule where we can be a bit more lenient, guys. There are no foods that are inherently good or bad for fat loss. They're just foods that contain more or less calories, more or less protein, etc. So next then we've got discipline, guys. So discipline sort of it goes without saying. In order to achieve something difficult, you're going to need to do things that you don't necessarily want to do. That is why it's difficult. So discipline is going to mean the difference between you choosing to maintain your daily routine or you choosing to go and have 10 pints of beer and a kebab and throw everything off rails. Discipline is going to be the thing that either stops you from doing that, or discipline is going to be the thing that gets you back on track immediately the day after. As I said, there's nothing wrong with going off plan as long as you are averagely doing things 80% of the time well. Yeah, the more strict and the more high your goal is, the less you can afford to go off track. So for example, if your goal is to achieve a bodybuilding competition success, you might need to do something like 95-5. So 95% of things serve your goal, and 5% of things take you further away from your goal, or are just things that you enjoy. So discipline, guys, please focus on your discipline. Make decisions that are going to take you towards your goal, not away. Every single decision you make is either a vote towards the goal or a vote against the goal. Understanding then, guys. So underpinning all of the different dieting principles and everything we spoke about today is a key understanding of what calories are, whether you need to be in a calorie deficit or surplus, what calories are contained within each different foods, why there aren't any good or bad foods inherently, why you can afford to eat to preference, why bread doesn't make you fat, for example, why butter isn't necessarily bad for you. Everything has a context behind it, guys. Everything is within the framework of a calorie surplus or a calorie deficit, and understanding the role that training plays within our diet as well. We need to train to make sure that our body wants to maintain the muscle. We need to adequately supply that muscle with protein to ensure that we grow. And we need to vary our protein sources, especially if we're vegetarian, to make sure we're getting a full spread of essential amino acids. That in its entirety is the end of the presentation. There are several things that I've covered today which are going to be key to your success. Understanding the key diet principles, understanding the importance of tracking your diet, understanding the key importance of measuring your progress, looking at things like protein, fats and carbs, and really looking into why we can eat fats and carbs to preference as opposed to one thing being better or worse for us than another. And realistically, guys, if you've done everything in this presentation, if you understand it, if you don't understand it, please give me a message. I'm more than happy to help you. My advice will be free of charge. If you want online coaching, or if you want online fitness or nutrition coaching, send me an email, sam@samgregorypt.com, and I'm more than happy to help you guys. If you're already one of my clients, thanks so much for listening to this. I hope it's been helpful. I hope it gives you a bit of understanding, along with my new Nutrition for Life ebook. What I've spoken about in this presentation is all covered in that book as well. You can pick that book up on my website or on my bio on my Instagram, guys. If you've got any questions, please, again, send me a message on Instagram, give me an email, sam@samgregorypt.com, or anything like that, guys. I'm more than happy to help you march on the path to success with your diet. I'm more than happy to help you put your diet together, and I'm more than happy to coach you along the way as well as that, guys, either online or in person. If you live near London, I'm more than happy to meet up with you. We can do it over FaceTime or anything like that, guys. So if you've got any questions about dieting or training, please get in touch, and I'm more than happy to help. Thanks for listening, guys, and I'll speak to you soon.